right, hey, welcome to today's session. We are here for the realty.com, I don't know what we call it, just a training session, I guess. We'll start with that and we'll go from there. My name is Wally Bressler, and I'm here today to talk to you about how you can go ahead and create a successful pipeline in your business no matter what the real estate market is like. And if you're one of the 59% of all salespeople who has trouble getting on the phone, who's a procrastinator, who's a perfectionist, who doesn't stick to their plan, who doesn't stick by their goals, then you're going to want to pay special attention today and stay around until the end, because I'm going to give you a strategy. I'm going to tell you exactly where that challenge comes from and then how to overcome it. That being said, let's go ahead and let's hit the road here. So interestingly enough, I like to joke around right here like that right there. That's a phone. Okay. And if you get a moment, you should go online and Google teens using rotary phone. Probably one of the funniest things you'll ever see. I always joke at this point. I'm like, I wonder how many people actually died calling 911 and didn't make it because they dialed 8 or they dialed the wrong number or whatever. But, that was a troubling thing. I remember having one of these in my house. So, look, I kind of consider myself the IRS of the real estate industry. And here's why. If you want to be a citizen in good standing, you pay your taxes. You want to be a real estate in good standing, you have to pick up the phone and talk to people. Okay. There's no way around it. And I don't care how great your marketing, your advertising, your social media, your AI is. At some point, you are going to have a conversation with somebody like you over the phone and compel them to go the rest of the way. Even if you get them to your front door, you need to get them through your front door so they will sit and talk with you. And so you need to be able to differentiate yourself and give value and help people understand why they need to work with you. And if you're buying what's going on at the national level right now with the class action suit that could require buyer's agents to negotiate their fee and present an offer with their fee in it to listing agents, then you're really going to need to be able to do a good job to justify having somebody come and sit with you so you can add the value you need and still make sure that you can earn a living for yourself. So all of this is super important, and it all starts with the phone. Now, we're going to talk about some uncomfortable things today. When we talk about getting on the phone, prospecting, some of you, your mouth is going to get dry. You're going to feel like you're going to throw up or throw up in your mouth, lightheadedness, whatever, upset stomach. We're also going to talk about some other uncomfortable things a little bit further down the road, which I think should hopefully have a huge impact on you, not just as a business person, but also just as a person in general. So I'd like to introduce my team to you. My company is called Trigger Sales System, and I founded it about 3.5 years ago. And we specialize in helping people overcome call reluctance, self-sabotage, procrastination, perfectionism, and other issues that keep them from picking up the phone and calling or, advancing a sale. 44% of salespeople bail after the first sign of resistance on a phone call. So objection, I didn't do it, I'm not interested, and they're out the door. So handling objections, also not sticking to your goals, not following a plan, all these things are challenges in general. So it is definitely an issue that we found that a lot of people are wanting to overcome, and we've come up with a strategy to help them do that. This guy right here got in the business in 1998, sold 72 houses his first 14 months in the business, and then went on to help build one of the most successful cold breaker franchises in the U.S. So it was a lot of fun. By the way, these pictures are all me. I get that. It's just my goofy way of introducing myself rather than telling you all about myself, just kind of being silly here. I've been coaching real estate agents since 2001. Full-time since 2006. And so at this point, I've got to update the slide. I've had over 45,000 live one-on-one calls, group trainings, in-person sessions, and whatnot with real estate agents around the US and Canada. I published my first book last year. It's been a little over a year now. It's like half memoir, half personal development book. It seems to have been received well in the sales community. I am a phone sales expert. I had call reluctance for 10 years myself. So I feel like I can not only talk about this topic as a coach and trainer, but also as somebody who's gone through what it takes to overcome the call reluctance. So, I think I can add some additional value there. In 2022, I was nominated as one of the Success 125, top 125 people in real estate that get results. And then last year, I was also on a TV show called Times Square Today, and it's a national syndication, and talked a lot more about what it takes to overcome call reluctance. So I've been really fortunate. I've had some great things happen to me, for me. And so I just want to share some of that with you. So This is a pretty familiar scene site. Let's go ahead and just listen to this real quickly. Interesting. I'm guessing that trying to think here. I don't know how to share my sound from this video here. I apologize. I'm gathering we can get the slides to you. I do apologize on that. Basically, the video is it's Seth from the boiler room, and essentially, oh, you can hear it. Okay, I'm sorry, my bad. So essentially, this is Seth from the boiler room, and so he was talking about the guy who called to sell him the paper and made him go through a sales call and then rejected him at the end anyway. And so that's kind of the salesperson's biggest fear. And oh, you can get them the slides. Thank you. Okay, cool. Thanks. So anyway, my apologies for the disconnect, but you'll be able to get these slides here when we're done. So look, we're going to talk about three things today: prospecting by the numbers, why the phone is still very impactful, and we're going to talk about three demographics: millennials, Gen Xers, and our friends in the baby boom generation. I'm going to give you 10 strategies after that on how to own the phone. Then we're going to talk about sales call reluctance and help you understand that it's actually not the phone or the person on the end of the phone. It's actually you. Okay. I know you're excited about that because people love when they get the finger pointed at them, but I'm kidding. Of course, we're not pointing the finger. We're just going to help you understand something at a higher level. So anyway, let's roll here. Let me see here. Excuse me one second. A little technological difficulty. There we go. So prospecting by the numbers. My man LL Cool J, Mama said knock you out. First line is don't call it a comeback. Just my way of being silly again. Here's the thing. A lot of people think that, oh my God, nobody picks up the phone anymore. They do. But we've gone from, I don't know, somewhere around 3.67, 3.7 contact attempts to get in touch with somebody to 8 contact attempts. And now we're somewhere between 22 and 26. Okay. So the phone works. It just requires a significant amount more effort on your part. And so, but I do want to kind of give you some ideas that if you're going to call people and talk to them, you still can have some great results. So prospecting by the numbers, you can see here that for millennials, Gen X, and baby boomers, 1/4 of each of these demographics do prefer communication before purchase. I think the challenge for people is that, excuse me, is that these folks want to talk to somebody when they're closer and ready to make the decision, but they really need to talk to somebody sooner, right? So they can prepare, so they can get educated, so they can go ahead and get pre-approved, so they can understand the lay of the land, and also for you to build a relationship with them so that they can trust you. In a minute, we're going to share some statistics, but historically, nurtured leads convert at a higher rate, right about 8%. They make bigger purchases, and they also move sooner. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they are educated and they trust the person that's working with them. So just something to tuck in the back of your head there. Now, once you get to higher ticket items, it goes all the way to 50%. And not surprisingly, the millennials are the ones that are the highest. Okay, if that makes sense. So 52%. So it's crazy, right? Because you would think that because people, they just want to text, they just want to email. In fact, the matter is that you're in a situation here where these folks are highly uneducated from a business standpoint, don't know as much about life and whatnot, so they tend to need a little bit more help. So anyway, these folks all want to talk. Okay. Now, cold calling statistics. This is interesting here. So, and here's the thing, like, we hear this, I know Ryan can hear me, hey, the leads suck, right? This is, I think it's for the Glengarry Glen Ross, the leads suck. The leads don't suck. You suck, right? And so, the interesting thing is that, there are four, what's the word I'm looking for? Four specific categories, if you will, that influence success in lead generation and conversion. Number one is data. Okay, Realty.com has probably some of the best data out there for buyer leads and seller leads. Tools, it is a very robust tool. Skill, meaning how good are you on what you do, and then effort. Okay, with Realty.com, you have incredible data and you have incredible tools. There's no question about the fact that it is top shelf, avant-garde, state of the art. You'd be hard pressed to find technology any better or data any better than anywhere else. Okay, the big thing is the skills and the effort. Okay, and so the leads don't suck. Are you putting the right amount of time? Are you talking to enough people? Okay, that's the big thing. Now, so why did I go through that whole rant right there? Because you're only going to talk to, on average, 20, 25, roughly, 1/4 of the leads you get. You may not, you're going to get wrong numbers and, bad numbers. You're going to get not me, whatever, so figured into that whole conversion of roughly, 1 to 3%, 1 to 4% of leads that are generated and that you get in touch, you get in touch with, you're going to sell 1 to 3, 1 to 4 houses out of every 100 leads. So you're not going to talk to or have any success with the majority of them, and that's okay. And that all figures that into that conversion number. Here's the other thing. 69% of buyers have accepted phone calls from new providers in the last 12 months. The question is have you called enough? Okay. So next after that, we talked about this a little earlier. And these slides backwards. I just realized this the other day. 44% of sales reps stopped the sale after receiving negative feedback on the first call. I'm not interested. I didn't call. I didn't do it, right? Oh, I didn't sign up, right? Because there's somebody in your neighborhood who's putting your name and email address and phone number online looking for houses for you. So we'll keep that to ourselves. But so 44% of sales representatives bail at the first sign of resistance. 48% of people will not make a follow-up call after that, and 44% do not make a second follow-up call. So I think the percentage is like these 12%, right? You get good chance of getting in touch with somebody, 1 out of 8, of talking to them. And if you're buying the speed to lead argument, which is really how you can pretty much guarantee that you'll be the first person to get in touch with them, which NAR says the buyer or seller works with usually only one person, and it's the first person that meets them. Your effort needs to be such that you will do whatever you can to get in touch with these folks. And that's not just the first call, it's follow-up calls. Now, I'm not a huge voicemail fan. It says here you have to leave 3 voicemails to get just a 33% response rate. Here's the thought. If you were to do 8 hours of calling, you would spend 2 hours leaving voicemail. So every 8 hours of prospecting, you're spending basically 1/4 of it leaving messages. Not the best use of your time. I leave messages when I know people, because that way I can, they're going to know my name and whatnot, and they'll take my call or they'll respond to my call. Sorry. But if I don't know them, I leave them a very simple message. Hey, it's Wally. Looks like I missed you. Give me a call. I call them like I know them. As soon as you start saying, hey, this is Wally, I'm calling from ABC Realty, and you would submitted a request to get information on homes and to peek, click. Well, there's no more clicks, right? We're too old for clicks. They just hit the red button, they're out the door. So just call like your friend. You will get responses to that, I promise you. In fact, more people will call you if you call and hang up on them, or if you just call and leave a message, and certainly don't leave your number, because you wouldn't leave your number for your friend or family member. Give that a run. I think you'll have some success with it. Okay. Now, a couple more things. I talked about this a little earlier, right? Since 2007, we've gone from 3.68 cold call attempts to about 22 to 26, almost 7 times now. Pretty crazy. And plus, some of the rules and laws the government's put in place has made it harder to call people too. So you just got to put that effort in. We talked about nurtured leads becoming a better opportunity. 60% of customers deny offers 4 times before making a purchasing decision. Usually what we said on the phone is, 4 no's get you the business about 60% of the time. When you get on the phone, you've got this, and this is why scripts are so important. People say, oh, I don't want to use scripts because I sound robotic. The reason you sound robotic is because you haven't internalized them and you're not comfortable with them. So, of course, you're going to sound robotic. But, excuse me, once you internalize what to say, when to say, how to say it, you'll be able to do follow-up questions. And somebody says, hey, we're going to wait. Okay, great. I can understand that. What has you waiting? Well, excuse me, we need to, we want interest rates to go down. Okay, that completely makes sense. What would you like them to go down to? Well, we don't know, but quite honestly, we just think it's too expensive with interest rates that way. I got you. It is kind of expensive, but there are some deals out there. Let me ask, if we could find you the perfect home with the perfect price with a monthly payment that worked for you, would you be open to looking sooner? We might, but quite honestly, we still think it's expensive. Well, look, can I make a suggestion? Sure. Let's go ahead and get you in touch with my preferred lender. He gets everybody the best possible rate and terms for their loan. And then from there, if it makes sense, great. And if not, we can hold off and then you can go look when you feel it's a better time for you, right? You have to be able to take calls that deep. And it's not that hard, okay? I'm no genius here. I mean, I graduated one above all the people that dropped out of my college, okay? I literally last in my class, okay? I am no genius, I promise you. And the number of times I smashed my head on other heads playing college and high school football, who knows? Okay. Last things here, we talked about this. Essentially, if you're the first person to meet with somebody in the proper time frame, meaning if you meet somebody a year ahead of time, they're probably not going to remember you. But if you're the first person to talk to somebody, you can get in front of them when they're ready to do something. You are not virtually guaranteed, but you're pretty close to guaranteed that they're going to work with you if you do the job that you need to do and demonstrate value. Okay, now let's talk about my Wally Bressler's lead pipe stone cold lock 10 keys to own the phone. Okay, number one, you have to work from your financial goal backwards. Okay, your bank doesn't care how many homes you sell. Your car company doesn't care how many homes you sell. Your kids don't care how many homes you sell. They care about how much money you make. Okay, and that money is driven by how many sales you're going to make. Right. So yes, the number of sales matters. What really matters is the money. Okay, and so work backward from your financial goal. It's real simple. Okay, you got to figure out how much money you're going to make, how many homes you need to sell, how many clients you need, how many appointments you need, how many contacts and dials. So let me just give you some numbers here, okay? If you want to sell any number of homes, let's just say you want to sell 10 homes. Well, you got to account for the fact that not everything goes through. So let's say 80%. So now you got to sell 12 homes, okay? You want, 12 sales. We're just going to be super conservative. Let's just say you need, and it's going to be higher, but conservative, let's just say you need 24 clients, that 50% of the people you meet with are going to buy something, okay? And then, the appointment shown rate is about 55% usually. So that point, let's just double it again. So now you need 48, let's call it 50 appointments or so, 60 appointments. And then if you figure that you need 20, if you need 22 appointments and we're assuming you need let's just call it 20 contacts times, 50 appointments, it's 1,000 contacts. And then the number of dials is going to vary, but 1,000 contacts, not a whole lot. It's less than 100 a month. Let's just, my math, it's 9 times is 980. So let's just say it's 90 contacts a month divided by 4. 4 is a 90, a little over 20 times. Let's call it 22. And then, we divide 22 by 5. That's like 4 or 5 contacts a day. I mean, it's 100% doable. Okay. If you can make 5 contacts a day, you should be able to sell somewhere between 10 and 12 homes. If you can double that, I think you can get to 2 home sales a month for sure. Okay. Next, you got to put a prospecting plan together. Okay. You can't go in all willy-nilly. Who am I going to call today? When should I call? What should I say? Like, you've got to put a plan together, right? It's that old adage, people put more time into planning a vacation than they do their whole life. I'm going to add on more salespeople put more time into planning a vacation than they do their prospecting strategy. Okay. You should have it in your calendar as non-negotiable, which I think is next, right? So we'll put it right there. It should be non-negotiable. It should be in your calendar. And the only reason you should move it is if somebody's dying, okay, or somebody's bleeding, or there's something on fire, or there's something you have to go to, like a graduation or a wedding or something that only happens, once a lifetime, okay? Other than that, you got to make it happen because it's the consistency that drives the results, okay? I'm a big fan of consistent action. Doesn't always produce consistent results, but it does produce success. Okay. You got to be consistent. In order to be consistent is put it in your calendar. Here's the other thing. And I think this is important, that some of the things that go into sales are boring. Okay. Calling people every day, prospecting for 2 hours, putting notes in there. It's boring, okay? But the difference between successful real estate agents and the ones that aren't successful is very simple. Successful real estate agents do the things they have to do, and they do the things that they don't want to do, and they push through the fear to make it happen, okay? And one of the things you must do to be a successful real estate agent is to talk to people. Now, look, eventually, once you build your business and you talk to enough people, you'll start getting some in a decent amount of inbound business, but that doesn't happen before you start talking to people and building that pipeline that you need, okay? Next, use proven scripts and dialogues. I'm a phone guy. I'm one of those weirdos. I like getting on the phone. I like talking to people. There's no shortage of scripts. I can give you scripts. Realty.com has scripts. Okay, as long as it's a script and you've internalized it, it's going to let you do what you need to do, is to lead people where you want to shoot the poop with somebody, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, you have to have a conversation that's going to lead them to an appointment, be a nurture, or to get them all. They got to go one of those three places. Okay, we're going to set an appointment, all right, or we're going to make you a nurture because you're, beyond 90 days, or you don't have financing, or you got a life event like a retirement that's happening next year. Okay, or I'm getting you off my list because you bought, or because you're a pain in the rear end. I don't want to spend any time with you. Okay. Or, but other than that, that's it. Those are really your three main outcomes. Okay. But you need to know what to say, when to say it, how to say it, to determine who falls into what category, and then get the results you want. Okay. Now, next, practice like you play. People don't want to role play. Okay. I got it. What's not working well, so you can, quote, look bad, meaning, not do well so you can do well. Zig Ziglar said, anything that's worth doing is worth doing wrong until you can do it right. Okay. And so, you have to humble yourself, and you have to realize that there are things you need to learn, and you need to role play. And here's the deal, the cerebellum, the same part of your brain that accounts for that muscle memory. So if you're a dancer or an artist, or I don't know, an athlete, that muscle memory, got locked in there. And, basically, as you went through the season or whatever you were doing, you got better and better. And even within the period of an event or something, you got better and better. That's because that muscle memory kicked in. Well, it works the same for cerebral activities like singing and memorization and internalization. You want to lock those scripts into the back of your brain so that when somebody asks you a question, you're not even thinking about it. It's literally coming out of your mouth because it's the right thing to say based upon what you've heard. But that takes practice. Now, look, nothing's ever going to replace game speed, so to speak, right? But you still have to practice so you can at least have those word tracks and those rebuttals at the ready. Okay. Next, track your efforts, right? If it can be tracked, it can be improved. It's like J. Abraham 101. It's very simple. You should be tracking your dials, your contacts, your nurtures, your appointments set, and your appointments shown. Every day, you prospect. If you do that for 30 days, I could look at it and say, hey, here's where you need to work on something. If you do for 60 days, that almost guarantees that if there is a weakness in your game, we can figure out where that is. And what do I mean? Well, if you're making a lot of dials, but you're not making a lot of contacts, you could be calling at the wrong time. Your data set could be not so great. It could be that, you're calling the wrong people in general. Okay. If you're making a lot of contacts, but you're not setting a lot of appointments, again, it could be a data set issue, could be your scripts, something of that nature. If you're making a lot of appointments, but people aren't showing up, it could be that you're setting appointments with unmotivated people. Again, it could mean that your scripts and dialogues are no bueno. So, and then lastly, if people are showing up and they're buying, you're likely setting appointments with people that just aren't ready to do something. But until you track things for 30 days, preferably 60 days, it's hard to fix that. But here's the good news, is that once you fix it, your success and scalability is 100% a mathematical problem. And here's what I mean. I know that if I talk to a certain number of people, I'm going to get so many appointments. And I know if so many appointments show up, that I'm going to get so many homes sold. And that's because I've tracked my efforts. Your skills, like every one of us has a conversion percentage at each stage of the conversion process on the phone that I just talked about here. So here's the thing. Somebody may, maybe I need to talk to 14 people. You may need to talk to 30 people. But if you know that you need to talk to 30 people to get an appointment, every 30 people is an appointment, then you call 30 people. I think the cool thing is, if you've ever followed Tony Robbins and listened to Mastering Influence, he tells a story about when he started selling for Jim Rohn, selling personal development stuff. And he was the newer sales guy. And, the people that were the other salespeople were in the contest. I think it was for a trip or something. And he said, hey, I'm going to beat you guys, not because I'm better than you. So I'm just going to outwork you. And so he called his butt off. And what happened was, as he called more and more, his skills got better and better. And what happened? Well, he had to talk to fewer people, and he did win the contest, he said. So the natural byproduct of doing what you're supposed to be doing, role playing, taking action, tracking your efforts, is you're going to get better. And eventually you're going to have to talk to fewer people to go ahead and get the results you want. Okay. Next, find an accountability partner. Kind of ties in what we talked about before. And you got to find somebody who's playing at a slightly higher level than you are, if you can. Somebody who is probably a little better on the phone than you are. Somebody who's a little better at managing their schedule than you are. Somebody who's a little better at sales than you are. Find somebody who's playing at a higher level so they can, grow, help you grow. So they can, a rising tide raises all ships. Somebody who can take you to the next level and who will not let you down from the accountability standpoint. Okay. Know your real why. It's a big one. If you've ever read Simon Sinek's Start With Why or Find Your Why, and then he says that a why is comprised of two things. Number one, it's something that has some sort of pain associated with it. Pain is a great motivator, right? We talk about getting leverage. Pain is leverage. It's a driving force. So number one, we use pain as we're trying to avoid that pain or use that pain as leverage. And then the second thing is you've got to be able to impact the outcome over it. Okay, you've got to contribute something to get something to come out, right? So I'm contributing A so that I can have B. So what does that mean? Well, people are like, oh, my kids are my why. Well, your kids are a who? A house is a what? A car is a what? A vacation's a when? Retirement's a when? You know what I'm saying? Those are who, what's, whens, and wheres. But if you have children and you don't want them to ever go through the same financial troubles you did, say, as a child, it's very painful as a child to, not be able to have things other kids had, or not be able to eat food every day, or whatever it is. You can use that pain of not having that as a child as your springboard, as your launching point to then go ahead and make sure you do everything you need to do. One thing of which is to get on the phone and prospect to make sure that your kids have the money that they need for their life. That is a why. Okay. And so hopefully that distinction is there. If you have not read Start With Why, I highly recommend it. Next, commit to nurturing your leads. For most real estate agents, prospecting is like turning over stones. It's like running through the woods looking for salamanders or worms or snakes, and you're like, oh, there's a stone, oh, there's a stone, oh, there's a stone, and continually getting on the phone and being a telemarketer, for lack of better terminology. Telemarketing is pick it up, talk it up, hang it up, right? I call you, you're not ready to buy or sell. Okay, thanks, let me find somebody else. Really what you need to be doing is you need to be working with an ISA, an inside sales agent, so you can transfer it over to somebody else to do for you, which is calling, identifying timing, motivation. Are they working with an agent? What are they doing for financing? Do they lease? Do they own? And then if they're not ready to do something now, identifying when they are ready to do that, and then implement a well established and a very strategic follow-up campaign that includes phone calls, text messages, email drip campaigns, and stay on top of them like a rat and a Cheeto. Your conversion will increase dramatically. And here's the other thing, and I think this is the best part of it, is that eventually, as you talk to people and nurture them, you will always have somebody to talk to that you've spoken with before. So your calls invariably will be a lot warmer across the board. Okay. And then last, you've got to get over your sales call reluctance. Okay. So about 59% of all salespeople have sales call reluctance or video reluctance, or they procrastinate, or they're a perfectionist, or they don't stick with their goals or their plan. And that, that same issues, people have the same issue with going to the gym consistently, taking care of themselves. Anything that requires consistency, it's all impacted by the same thing. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. So sales call reluctance, it's not the phone, it's you. What do I mean? Well, here's the thing. It's called call reluctance syndrome. And it's basically people's either lack of desire or unwillingness to even get on the phone, cold calling, prospecting, depending upon if you're in a real estate organization, that has recruiting element to it for rev share. Even that's a big issue for people. And essentially, it's a huge obstacle for people who want to have great sales results, and it impedes their business growth. So let's take a look at this. Okay, so You know, sometimes it's literally negative emotions such as fear, embarrassment, shame, anxiety, guilt, and even panic. And call reluctance, when it kicks in, it creates some really negative feelings for people. Okay, it can also give you lightheadedness. It can give you an upset stomach, and I'm going to tell you why in a little bit. Makes your mouth dry up, sweaty palms, sweaty pits. Okay, sometimes it's negative thoughts and anticipation of the worst. They don't need it. They're going to turn me down. They don't want this. I'm bothering them. It's too late to call. It's too early to call. Sometimes it's a mental block that just keeps people from taking action. Like I just used to check out. Okay, check out. Next, sometimes they try to deny their own negative emotional responses. You perfectionists and procrastinators, I'm talking to you. The getting ready to get ready, folks. I got to learn my scripts. I got to learn my presentation. Oh, look at all those clothes on the laundry that need to be done. Those dishes. Oh, my shoes. Any reason to not make phone calls and do what you need to do. You're just buying time for yourself, and eventually, unfortunately, that time never comes. Like I said earlier, fear of getting in front of a camera to record videos for social media, fear of calling past clients in fear for referrals, fear of recruiting people, and then basically it gets into that vicious circle of beating yourself up in an effort to get on the phone and not doing so. And you get excited, I'm going to do it, and then you don't do it, then you beat yourself up, and it's just a vicious circle, and it just keeps everybody, in the mode of not living the life personally, spiritually, financially that they want. So Wally, where does call reluctance come from? Well, that's me right there. And this is 2006, actually September 5th of 2013. I walked up to Forest City federal prison to serve a 14-month sentence for mail fraud. And if you stick with me, this will help you understand how things impact us for call reluctance. I was doing some real estate investing, and my former business partner lied on about $15 million worth of mortgages. And while I wasn't actively trying to steal any money, I wasn't exactly being a good citizen and paying attention and doing what I should have been doing. And so, I had to accept responsibility for making a bad decision. And so I spent, 366 days of my sentence there. I waited I don't know how much I weighed, because when I got to the prison and stepped on the scale, all I got was 3 dashes. But my belief is around 500 pounds. And so over that period of time, I didn't see my kids for a year. It was tough. And so what led me to that? Great question. So when I was, I've always framed my comments this way. Okay. My mom and dad were not bad people. Okay. They were good people. They just were not good parents because, well, their parents weren't good parents. And so one of my punishments when I was 3, 4, 5 years old was to be sent to bed without dinner if I was not behaving that day. Or I think when I was 3 years old, I was playing with my mashed potatoes in my high chair, and my dad said, stop playing, and I didn't. And so he put all the mashed potatoes in my hand and rubbed them all over my hair and my face. And to this day, I don't like mashed potatoes. I'm not saying there's a direct correlation, but maybe there is. So, probably starting at age 5 and 6, it was the beginning of what has been a 50-year binge eating disorder. Obviously that's part of how I soothed my pain, was eating. When I was 10 years old, I was sexually abused. When I was 11, I started looking at my father's pornography magazines. And then when I was 12, we moved, and I started having sex, pretty regularly at 12, which no 12-year-old should. And then that entire time up until age 14, I was bullied mercilessly. My parents never taught me to protect myself. And so by the time I was 14, I pretty much hated myself. I had already had anxiety issues, depression issues, fear issues, lots of big self-esteem issues and self-worth issues. And so, but at 14, I went from the person who got hurt to the person who did all the hurting. Okay. And so, from my teen years to my adult life, I probably wasted about $5 million up to, a few years ago. I was unfaithful to my ex-wife 4 times. I did go to federal prison. Didn't do well when my mom was one of the investors in the real estate deals we did. And, she didn't forgive me on her deathbed. She died young at 64, my dad at 49, blown up most of the relationships I had for my entire life, and just lots of bad decisions, and then, I when I got out of prison, I didn't think that anybody wanted to be with me. And so, there was somebody who showed a tremendous amount of interest in me. And, like all of us, just want to be loved, just want to be accepted. And so I started a relationship with a woman, and we were in a relationship for 4.5 years, super toxic. I asked her to marry me. She did. And then finally, because she would move down to Texas from the state she lived in. I broke up with her, and then I found out about 3 days later that she had lied to me about everything. She told me was actually married the entire time we were together. So it was pretty bad. And so I'm trying to think here. About a month later, I decided I was going to take my own life. And were it not for a quick conversation with God reminding me of how horrible it was for my brother and my sister and me when my dad died when he was 49, I probably wouldn't be here today. So, but it was that day I was like, okay, I really have to do something here. And so I started working on myself and working on myself and going through the healing that I went through. I realized that there were things that happened when I was a kid that created issues for me that put me in a position to feel shame and guilt and, make bad decisions in an effort to protect myself, right? Don Wood says there's no such thing as self-sabotage. It's just your brain running for safety. And a lot of times that safety means you don't do the things you need to do because they scare you. And so I think that's important to take into consideration. And so basically what happens is this. Sorry, hold on a second here. So something happens, right? Sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, bullied, beaten up, adults, kids made fun of, hidden identities, believing things to be true about ourselves based on observations we make. What do I mean? Well, we were poor growing up. No one told me we were poor, but I could tell we were poor because my clothes were different than the other kids. Other kids went on vacation. I didn't go on vacation, To this day, I've never had a cowtail candy. All the kids in school, not all, a lot of kids in school had cowtails. I asked my mom, can we have cowtails? No, we can't afford them. We had a car, we had a house, but basically, my parents were barely making it. And so even though I wasn't told I was poor, I made observations about my lunches, my clothes, the activities we engaged in, and decided I was poor, had a poverty consciousness, which part of it led to, blowing millions of dollars. And sometimes it's learned belief systems. What I mean, well, your mom and your dad, depending upon how their parents treated them, you could have gotten yelled at a lot as a kid. You could have gotten smacked. You could have walked out the door every day and your dad hit you in the back of the head and say, don't do anything stupid. Or, hey, don't try anything today because nothing good ever happens for the Bressler family. Or your parents get divorced when you're young. And a lot of this has to happen before you're 12. In fact, most of who we are from a belief system standpoint and whatnot is really created about ourselves, at least, is created by the time we're 7. And by the time we're 12, that's pretty much locked down. Happens pretty early. So, if your parents got divorced when you were young and you live with one parent over the other, or if one parent smashed the other parent verbally or physically, or if your parents were alcoholics, that's a big problem, right? Alcoholic parents, can't pour into their children. They can't do the things for their children that they need them to do to encourage them, to love them, to help them grow, to deal with adversity. And so that's a huge issue. There's people who are affected by parents who fought all the time. And then there's people who are affected by parents who never fought. Right? If your parents never fought, they didn't do you any favors. So you grew up like Leave It to Beaver. That's great. The minute you leave the house and get some feedback from somebody that you don't like, it crushes you. A lot of folks who have parents who never fought have trouble dealing with adversity. They look at every phone call as a chance for some sort of, contentious event to happen. And so, look, it's not your fault, okay? But it is your responsibility. There's a great video by Will Smith. He talks about fault versus responsibility. And even though many of these things, and none of these things are your fault, it is your responsibility to resolve if you truly want to live a fulfilling life and build a great business for yourself, okay? And so I'm going to show you basically what I teach people to do in order to go ahead and get over their call reluctance. So first step is identify the source. So look, you don't go to the doctor and say, hey, my head hurts, and the doctor says, okay, we're going to operate, right? He's like, hey, where's the pain? Is it on the inside? Is it on the outside? Is it consistent? Is it throbbing? Is it, does it come and go? Like, tell me all about it, right? They're going to identify the true source of the problem so they can solve it, right? You come in with, a cut on your arm and it's bleeding and it's infected, and the doctor says, hey, I'm going to go ahead and give you some birth control pills. And that's not going to solve the problem, right? Especially if you're a guy. Anyway, kidding. So the whole point is that we've got to identify the source. Now, I gave you an idea of where the source was, and quite honestly, as I was saying some of that stuff, some of you were listening to this, your brains went to looking and said, oh my God, I remember this, I remember that. It's just been sitting there for all these decades, just waiting to come out and go. But in order for you to resolve it, you got to know where it started. So you got to go become aware of what has created your procrastination, perfectionism, call reluctance, whatever it is. The easiest way to do that is to get a couple of note cards. You perfectionist, get a piece of paper. You don't need note cards. And just write on it. What is it that's causing me to have call reluctance, or what is it that's causing procrastination, or what is it that's causing perfectionism, or whatever it is. You can also throw into this group of people who continue to date the wrong person. If you're a people pleaser, all that stuff plays in here, okay? And then just what you do is you keep one of those with you today, you read it, look at it, and then you put the next one next to your nightstand, and by tomorrow morning, you'll have a pretty good idea of what specifically caused the issues you're having today. Good news. Now, here's the thing. We're going to go from this global awareness of, hey, where did this come from to situational awareness. And here's what I mean. When it comes time to do something that you're not comfortable with, when you get that icky feeling, okay? And by the way, if you get signs of lightheadedness, dry mouth, sweaty palms, sweaty pits, upset stomach, or anything like that, it's because your body is basically preparing for fight or flight. And in this case, it's usually flight, okay? Because people who don't want to pick up the phone and make calls and have trouble dealing with the things we talk about, we're runners. You know what I'm saying? We're runners. It's how we run from the pain. And it's not your fault, and it's not make you a coward. It just means that your brain has been trained since you were a little kid to avoid things that created that pain, okay? Rejection, not being good enough. 59% of salespeople, like I said earlier, suffer from a strong need to be liked. It's okay to want to be liked, but when your need to be liked is so strong that it keeps you from doing things to enjoy a happy life and everything else, that's when the problem exists, okay? Now, what do I mean by situational awareness? Situational awareness. Well, look, there is a physiological response for every emotion that comes up, okay? Happiness, sadness, ecstasy, anger, whatever it is, there is a physical response that comes along with that. The problem is that most of us have gotten really good at skipping right past it, and here's what I mean. So T. Harv Eker, Canadian personal development guy, Mr. Yes or Yes, he says there's TFAR, thoughts, feelings, actions, results. I get a feeling, I get a thought, I get triggered, right? Trigger can come with or without your attention, with or without your permission. And I get a feeling. But you know what? I don't like these feelings. I'm going to skip by the feeling. I'm just going to go right to action. I'm going to numb the hell out of it and go right to action or interaction, and then I'm going to get a result. But what happens is we go trigger, skip this, drink, trigger, skip this, procrastinate, trigger, skip this, drugs, alcohol, sex, pornography, procrastination, sitting on social media for a half hour, watching TV, right? We just skip past this emotion and we go right to action or interaction and get a result. And 9.5 times out of 10, it's not the result we want. So what do we need to do? Well, when that feeling comes up, rather than just pushing it away, you go, wait a second, be aware that it's there and say, okay, I'm feeling something right now. What is that feeling? Anxiety, sadness, anger, frustration, whatever it is, and say, okay, this is anxiety, and this is why I'm having anxiety, and this is why I get anxiety. So I'm going to define it. Okay, it's anxiety. I'm identifying it as anxiety, and I'm defining it as, I want to get on the phone, and getting on the phone is rejection, and I've hated rejection since I was a kid because, well, I had 5 older brothers and sisters, and they all beat up on me and teased me, and they ignored me my entire childhood, and nobody poured into me, and so that's why I hate that. And then the last part is becoming mindful, and mindfulness is just literally focusing on right now. Like what's going on at this very second, right? If I think about the future and all the crap that can go wrong and all the scary stuff, there's fear. If I think about the past and all the bad, crappy things that happened and whatnot, I think about sadness, I can get depressed. But if I'm focusing on the right now and just what's happening this very second, I can't be thinking about those things, right? Our brain can only truly focus on one thing. So mindfulness is, the simplest form of mindfulness is square breathing. You just Google square breathing. It's just a breath in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. Do that for a minute. Stomach gets better, breathing gets better, mouth gets the water, the saliva starts flowing again. All that stuff goes back to you being where you are. You're going from what they call fight or flight to rest and digest, which is where we are right now. Okay, so here's the thing: you got to do it every time that feeling comes up, and eventually, by training your brain not to let the things bother you through the strategy or through the phenomenon of neuroplasticity, you can train your brain to respond better to these things. Once you start identifying that, you got to reprogram your brain for success. Okay, listen, we say some of the nastiest, most horrible things we could ever say to somebody, to ourselves. Okay, We would never say to a child many of the things we say to us, you're lazy, you're no good, you're dumb, I'm not good, you're not good at this, you're not good at that. Like no good person would ever tell a child that. And if you want to say it to a kid, don't say it to yourself. But easier said than done. So my suggestion is you go get Hal Elrod's book, The Miracle Morning, and you follow his morning savers, right? He calls them savers. So it's scribing, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and then meditation or silence, and really get into, the routine of making sure you say good things to yourself every day. Make sure you're reading a good book on personal development. I think for folks who have issues like this, I'd like to recommend The Gifts of Imperfection or The Art of Letting Go. Either of those are great books, and really just focus on affirmations and seeing how you want things to be, and taking care of yourself and giving yourself some self-care, and then practicing some of that mindfulness meditation to start teaching your brain that it doesn't need to let everything in like it has for the last period of time you've been alive. Next, what drives you? Okay, a lot of times, when our brain is so preoccupied in the background, not even like consciously, when your brain is occupied by stuff, it has trouble thinking about the future. Like if you're running from fear, if you're trying to push down the fear and the pain, it's virtually impossible for you to focus on what you want and get excited about the future. Okay. My son, Alex, wonderful kid. When he was 14, he tried to take his own life and had a tough time. He was bullied. Me going to prison for a year didn't help his mom, and I got divorced while I was away. So it was tough. And, he's great now. He's doing really well now, and working on, getting into the trades for his life. So we're super excited for him. But I remember when I started my business a few years ago, I said, Al, why don't you come work with me? He said, okay. I said, here's a piece of paper. Here's a pen. I want you to write down 10 things that you want to accomplish. And he sat there for an hour and couldn't write down one thing. And I'm like, hey, like, what's going on here? I'm like, you told me you wanted to go to Peter Luger's for a steak. You love steak. You told me you wanted to own a house near a lake in New Hampshire. Like, he had stuff that he had wanted, but because he was dealing with so much BS that he hadn't resolved yet, his brain wasn't giving him the peace of mind and wasn't allowing him to think of the future and all the good things that can happen. And not only that, but believe that it could happen for him. So, these are things that, if you've been running from pain or fear or whatever for most of your life, it's hard for you to think about what you want in life and how it can even be possible for you. So once you reprogram your brain and go through these first steps, you start letting little cracks of hope and excitement in, and then you can focus on what drives you. This is Daniel Pink here. There's 3 things that drive you and keep you motivated: is mastery, autonomy, and purpose, right? Autonomy. What does my life look like when I'm living the 3 freedoms: time freedom, location freedom, and money freedom? And what's my why? What's my purpose? And we talked about that earlier. So these are the steps I take people through. And normally within 2 months, their call reluctance is gone. Like, your brain is begging you to get any of the crap that's in there out. It's been trying to do it your whole life, but not unfortunately, well, we have this negativity bias that we're programmed with, and it's tied to your reticular activator, meaning, your brain is continually looking for things to protect you from, right? And your negativity bias is there to keep you from doing dumb stuff, to get killed. So your brain's programmed for negativity to begin with, okay? But when more bad things happen, it will continue to do things to protect you, which is the other side of it, which means that your brain, while it wants to protect you, it also wants clarity, it also wants peace, it also wants resolution, right? So by protecting you and keeping you alive, it uses this negativity bias, but you have to step in and say, okay, I've got all this BS that's been running around in my head all this time that's not serving me, that's super disempowering, and I need to get it out. And that's why you've got to work on rewiring your brain and getting the crap out of there, and then determining what you're going to let in and let stay in, okay? Look, since you were a kid, you've been told all kinds of things, and nobody sat with us when we were 4 and said, hey, you're good enough. Not nobody, but most of us didn't have somebody say, you're good enough just the way you are. You don't need anybody's approval. You don't need anybody's acceptance. Okay, somebody said something and hurt you. Okay, here's how it is. It's not them. It's not you. It's them. It's their, I'm saying? Nobody sat down and talked us through all this stuff and helped us process all these belief systems and accepted us and approved of us in such a way and taught us how to deal with adversity to the point where we can do it naturally now. Okay, in fact, our brains are like little, for better lack of a terminology, a bank account, specifically a savings account, right? Anybody could make a deposit. Only one person can take it out. It was you, and nobody taught us how to take it out. So anytime, sadness came up, you just ran with sadness. Anytime a deposit of negativity was put in, you just put it in there and ran with it. And so now you got to take an active part in straightening this stuff out, but you can totally do that. I'm telling you, once you are not dealing with procrastination, perfectionism, call reluctance, it's going to change your life. Okay. You will never let anything get in your way again, and you will be able to get on the phone and do the things you need to do to be successful. Listen, sales is not genius. Okay. There's plenty of people who are not super educated, who, may not be that savvy, may not be that worldly, who are doing a great job in sales because they do what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it, and they take action. So, this is something that if it's hindering you, you've got to hop on. Okay. And you got to get on like a rat in a Cheeto, and it's not going away by itself. In fact, it's only going to get worse from a mental health standpoint. If you suffer from these issues, which are, for lack of better terminology, mental health issues, they're only going to get worse. And they get worse and worse and worse. And mental health issues like low self-esteem, low self-worth, and things of that nature, all the stuff that causes all that, eventually it can cause severe anxiety, severe depression, PTSD, and, even doing what I wanted to do, which is put a gun in your mouth. Okay. So really important that if you have not worked on this, it's time to work on it. Okay. We talked earlier, I was fortunate enough to publish my first book last year, and then I co-authored another book this year called Figure Agent, How to Make Your First Six Figures in Real Estate. They're both on Amazon. And then last things last, some of you probably need to talk at this point, or are having trouble. And, I'd love to talk to you. I'm not looking for any money. You can grab a half hour on my calendar. Let's talk. Let's go see what's going on. And, if you're having issues, I can, within 10 minutes, I can probably help you identify where that call reluctance comes from, and kind of send you in a direction to help you resolve that. Because again, if you have any sort of sales reluctance, call reluctance, whatever, procrastination, all those things I mentioned before, they are forever going to get in your way in life and business, and they're not going to go away until you do anything about them. And it is definitely on you. Not easy, but it is possible. Last thing, Marvel's movie, The Punisher, my favorite line here, says you can hide your identity, but you can't hide who you are. Okay? So you can put these masks on and hide from people, but eventually whatever's going on the inside is going to show up on the outside. That's all I have for today. If you're, again, if you're in a situation where you're having some trouble with anything related to what's going on in your business or your life, and you need somebody to talk to, and you need some help, grab some time. You know what I'm saying? Get a half hour. Let's talk. I don't tell secrets out of school. You don't get to be a coach in the real estate industry or any industry for 22 years by sharing other people's stories. So be kind to yourself, love yourself. Everybody needs some compassion, self-compassion. Kristen Neff, she defines self-compassion as the same compassion you would give somebody else, but for ourselves. So if you're going through something, like really, really look at it and say, what would I say to somebody else in this situation? You wouldn't tell them that they were a loser. You wouldn't tell them that they were no good. You wouldn't tell them that they were a failure. You wouldn't make excuses. You would say, hey, buddy, all right, I love you. Pick up your head. Bad things happen to good people all the time. Nobody's perfect. Okay. And just, if you work on this, things to get better and start changing the way you talk to yourself. Other than that, that's all I have for today. I'm grateful for your time today. If you need anything else, let me know, but get out there and go sell some stuff. Thanks.